Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio's The Incoherent Ramblings of C&E. Christopher and Eric are your hosts, coming to you live from Greensboro, North Carolina, as we do every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Our intro music is provided from the Podshow PodSafe Music Network. Check it out at music.podshow.com. Also, feel free to email your topics for discussion, suggestions, and comments to incoherentramblings@live.com.
And good day. This is Christopher. No Eric. It is February 11th, 2010. Got started just a couple minutes late. I do apologize for that. Hope everybody's doing well today. Broadcasting here from the internationally famous C&E Studios in Greensboro, North Carolina. This is the Incoherent Ramblings of C&E, and you are stuck with the Incoherent Ramblings of C again. Just me by myself. Really dry weather. It's cool, windy, very windy. Yesterday we had gusts up to 50 miles an hour, and dry. So I'm a little dry-mouthed, and my nasal and my air passageways are a little dried up. So I'm apologize in advance. I will have to be sipping on my water quite frequently. Nonetheless, I am here with you for about the next 57 minutes. And I will do my best to ramble incoherently about just whatever pops into my mind. Eric is, like I said, he's not with us. He is, we've had some listeners ask what's going on as far as, his house situation, moving from his old to his new, and we've been talking about this for quite some time. And I won't go into all of the situation because it is of a personal nature. However, suffice it to say, he is moving from one house to another, and is fortunate enough to be able to take his time fixing up the new house until he moves from the old house. It's a pretty good deal. He's got the main floor and a full basement. It's not entirely a full basement, but it's still a nice-sized basement. Upstairs, he has 3 bedrooms and 2 full baths. Downstairs, and also he has a very nice kitchen, dining room, and living room area, and a nice sunroom where he's going to have his office. And then downstairs, he has what could be a bedroom he's going to use for storage, another full bath, and a den, a second living den area with a fireplace. Fireplace upstairs and downstairs. I think maybe about 3,000, 3,200 square feet, somewhere in that range. So, good sized house, a lot of room. Nice neighborhood. Is on a dead end road, just off of a main road of traffic, so it's not very much traffic going through there. So good for his daughter to get out and play. And he told me today, as we were speaking on the phone, and he was calling to apologize for not being able to make it. He told me that he hopes to actually start moving some of his stuff this weekend, if not sometime next week. So it could be by the next time the show rolls around, he could either be completely moved in, if not at least partially moved in, and certainly by 2 shows from now, he should be in his new home. So bear with us. I know our loyal listeners will certainly understand, and if you are just stopping by here or there, realize it's not usually just me by myself. It usually is Eric along with me. So you guys know this if you're at Blog Talk Radio already, but if you're listening to this perhaps as a podcast that someone has given to you or that you've got from iTunes, you can go to blogtalkradio.com/incoherent ramblings, and there you can find a lot of different ways to get in touch with us. Facebook, MySpace, Twitter. It will also, we have our page there at Blog Talk Radio, where you can email us. At any of those sites, you can send us a message. You can also go, like I mentioned, iTunes and subscribe to our channel, and it will download our weekly podcast when it's posted up there. So that's basically how you can get a hold of us. Send us some email, some story ideas to this date, and we've been doing this show for just over a year now. Our first show was the Thursday before the 2009 Super Bowl. So just over a year now we've been doing the show, and to this date we have aired every single listener-submitted story, even some that really didn't kind of fit the format of our show. That's fine. We want to interact with our listeners as much as possible, and as long as it's not, incredibly crude or vulgar, we'll run any story that a listener submits to us. So let's see here. Beautiful day. It is cold and windy and dry. Well, cool. But the winds have died down a little bit. And mostly sunny today, a few clouds. Maybe a little bit too cool for our tailgaters. We haven't seen them very much this winter. Maybe when spring comes around, we might start getting some tailgaters once again. So we will see about that. I've got a little bit of good news. I wish we could have more. We like to laugh. And people who listen to the show on a regular basis, they know Eric has a peculiar laugh. It definitely is unique, and it stands out. And sometimes it's a little contagious. Eric's a great guy, but he's also got a contagious laugh. And so we love to laugh. I love to make him laugh, and I love to laugh. And more often than not, stories that we find humorous, maybe not, they may not be that humorous in the first place. It's just maybe a little dark humor. So we try to start off with some good stories. We try to start off telling you about, news of heroism, good deeds, I can't pronounce that word. People that give money away. Why is it got to be so hard to pronounce? Rich people that give money away, and sometimes poor people that give money away just because they have a good heart. Some good news stories. And so we try to start off with a little bit of a positive spin. It's kind of a running gag that sometimes Eric will start off with a good news story that doesn't necessarily have a good news feel to it. You're trying to wonder where he's coming from, but he usually does tie it down at the end where you can see maybe at least the silver lining. Nonetheless, we'll look through here. It's a little frustrating when I try to use what seems to be reliable sources. Of course, the internet is the internet, and shouldn't just be so naive as to believe everything. But I try to use legitimate, reliable news sources that submit AP submitted stories and whatnot. And so I'm kind of limited because I don't just go out there and just read anything as quote unquote news. So my sources, I can go 3 weeks with not having any news stories, and then all of a sudden I can have like 10 or 12 at once. So I'm kind of limited to what I can find, but if I see something that looks like good news, I definitely am going to share it. Excuse me while I have some water. So I'm I'm looking through this new link that I've been using called Heroes and Angels. And it hasn't been updated in quite some time. So it's a little frustrating because they have some really good stories on there. So I'm going to read this. Everybody knows I love dogs. The show's official mascot, Bella, is actually not in the studio with us tonight. She had supper about 30 minutes ago and is resting on her bed the next floor up in the studio. This dog has 3 beds in this house, so she pretty much picks and chooses where she wants to be. She's usually down here with me, but here's a story about a dog that only has 2 legs. Comes to us from Los Angeles. Like any good Hollywood transplant, Scooby-Roo went from troubled past to rehab. The 2-legged dog has celebrity friends like Demi Moore and Alyssa Milano. I wish I had a friend like Alyssa Milano. She is pleasing to my eyes. He has a therapist and a personal trainer and can look forward to a masseuse and an acupuncturist. I don't think my dog would go for that. But it didn't start out that way. The 11-month-old mutt was born without front legs and dumped in south central Los Angeles. He and his sister Sophie were found living in a wrecked, abandoned car in a near a freeway on-ramp. He was covered in blood from scooting around the asphalt. A pair of good Samaritans caught the dogs and took them to Sheila Choi, who runs Fuzzy Dog and Cat Rescue in Santa Monica. While some shelters might have euthanized the dogs, Choi sent out a mass email looking for donations and other supports. Demi Moore tweeted about Rue. Shannon Elizabeth sent money and tweeted for more dollars. Alyssa Milano saw a YouTube of the dog and fell in love. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't understand. I have a 3G phone and a solid signal with, right now, all of my bars showing. So I can't even imagine why my call would drop, but nonetheless, it happens. And we are sitting here at the grace of technology. And so I apologize for that, but I am back. So anyhow, I was saying, we got here. Alyssa Milano is having a photo shoot with this little dog. Let's see here. The dog is named. Well, he got named as a combination of Scooby-Doo and a cross between Scooby-Doo and a kangaroo. Thus Scooby-Roo. He's got a therapist and a personal trainer to help him with wheels. He actually has this apparatus hooked up to his body, and in the place of where his legs would be are these what look to be like bicycle wheels. They cost $2,000 for these custom-made wheels, but that was paid for by donations. He is quite a cute-looking little dog. I'm not sure what he is, but in looking at him in this picture, he does. I mean, he literally does not have any front legs. So, a sweet story about a dog who, and with his wheels, looks quite happy. He can run around and play. And he's sitting here in this picture kissing Alyssa Milano, so he's not doing too bad, is he? I got that as a link off of my from Heroes and Angels that goes over to Pet News. and some of which is not very good news, so I don't always read from here, but sometimes the heroes and angels and whatnot leads me over to some story about some animals. Here's an interesting story. Well, I thought I had this story. Maybe I just looked at it last week. Anyhow, it's still pretty amazing. No, this comes from January 11th. I am sorry. Anyhow, video is astonishing. A Florida man has been run over and trapped to death beneath a 3,500-pound car. With no time to spare, a group of bystanders take hold of one side of the car and physically lift it high in the air, saving the man's life. They turned into the Incredible Hulk. John Henry Hill, the man of the car, told Natalie Morales as he watched surveillance video of the incident that nearly killed him. I was unconscious under the car. After I saw the film, I was so in awe that I had so many people come together with all of this collection of adrenaline. That was just amazing how these guys rallied for my life to do that. That's pretty amazing. If you want to go out to MSNBC and do a quick search for it, there's actually a link to the video where you can see. It's a bizarre attack. The 63-year-old Hill sat in a wheelchair, his pelvis still healing after being broken, when the irate father of one of his tenants allegedly chased Hill down with his car and ran the landlord over December 10th in Fort Lauderdale. Finally out of the hospital and on the mend, he can now talk about the attack with what he considers an innocuous request he made of 59-year-old Franklin Parker to not park on the lawn of the house that Parker's daughter was renting from Hill. It was just a mere pleasant remark I made to the gentleman about parking on the grass. He became very irate and began to approach me with profane language and a hostile approach. I began to get back and was just very afraid of him. It moved on from there, and he got into his car. He never supposed that Parker, who had been charged with attempted homicide, meant to run him over, until the man reportedly began chasing him down with his car, turning donuts on the lawn of the rental property. That's when I began running for my life. Story, it goes on about, he ran off the property and around the corner. Video shows Parker's 92 Ford Taurus station wagon pursuing him down the street, over a curb, and onto a lawn. Then Hill falls down and the Taurus completely runs over him before stopping just short of a utility pole with Hill hidden beneath. He lost his consciousness when he was run over, but remembers clearly running for his life, and then his alarm when he started to fall with the car hot behind him. He was like praying, "Dear God, don't let me fall. This car's going to run over me." Then he had a vision that set his mind at ease. I just happened to see the spiritual cloud of my mom and God around me, and they made me fall. That was in the plan. Had I not fallen, then I would have been killed immediately and plastered against the pole or the wall. Has a picture here of the X-ray showing the damage to his pelvis, quite bent up and destroyed. He remained under the car for a few minutes until Fort Lauderdale police officer Paul Brown arrived and realized that somebody had to free him. Brown asked the local residents to help lift the car. Weeks later, he still doesn't know how they were able to do it. If I had to do it all over again, I don't think I could. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, 3,200-pound car, and a police officer and a couple people from the neighborhood just pick it up and lift it high enough to get the man out from underneath it. So, pretty amazing story. This guy is in a wheelchair and obviously has lots of rehab in his near future, but I believe he will be able to make it. Pretty cool story there, and an amazing feat of strength from people that were had an adrenaline rush in wanting to help people. Oh, I have a great story here submitted by our UK correspondent that I will get to in just a moment. Once I'm done with our good news stories, which I think that's going to be it. It is. Because of wonderful world, happy positive news from across the nation and around the globe. Has nothing new from last week. So, maybe I'll try to get on to some funny stuff, or at least something that I consider to be funny. Here is a listener-submitted story, and he's a live listener with us, a loyal listener, our UK correspondent stuck in the 70s. The headline is what's making me chuckle. Arab ambassador discovers bride is bearded and cross-eyed behind veil. An Arab ambassador has called off his wedding after discovering his wife-to-be, who wears a face-covering veil, is bearded and cross-eyed. Maybe that's not all he is going to find out. The envoy had only met the woman a few times, during which she had hidden her face behind, I'm not going to try to pronounce the word, it's an Arab word that they use to cover their face. It's a veil. After the marriage contract was signed, the ambassador attempted to kiss his bride-to-be. It was only then that he discovered her facial hair and eyes. The ambassador told an Islamic Sharia court in the United Arab Emirates he was tricked into the marriage, as the woman's mother had shown his own mother pictures of her sister instead of his bride-to-be. He sued for the contract to be annulled, and also demanded the woman to pay him 500 dirhams, which is 85,000 pounds, for clothes, jewelry, and other gifts he had bought for her. The court annulled the contract, but they rejected his demand for compensation. And the ambassador has also not been identified. So that could, with a creative writer, that could actually be the basis for a comedic film, and at the very least, a funny scene in a comedic film. But that's quite funny. This dude, the mother showing the pictures of the attractive girl, and then he gets the girl with a beard and cross eyes, and maybe she wasn't even a girl. I don't know. I can't speculate there, but it isn't exactly normal for a woman to have a beard. Cross-eyed, whatever. I don't think that's never has bothered me. I know actually quite a few young ladies that are a little cross-eyed and still quite attractive. But this guy is he got married to the bearded woman. Oh man, maybe she's on some kind of United Arab Emirates circus tour right now. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's see if we can find some. I read the story earlier in the week, and I forgot to save it. So. Stuck in the 70s has stated that he didn't think the Arabs were that picky. I'm just going to leave that statement as it is. I won't elaborate there. This is a story I read earlier in the week, and I forgot to save it, and I'm glad I come across it. This is Roanoke, Virginia. Roanoke man claims sheriff's deputies beat him in the city jail because of his burping. Thomas Scott Vandergrift made the allegations in a federal lawsuit filed last week against several deputies, the city, the sheriff's office, and the sheriff. According to the lawsuit, the deputies were annoyed by Vandegrift's burping, which was caused by acid reflux. He was being held at the jail on a drunken driving charge. Maybe he was burping because he was intoxicated and had too much to drink. I don't know. He pleaded no contest in 2008 and received a 6-month suspended sentence, a $750 fine, and a year of driving restrictions. The lawsuit alleges excessive force, conspiracy to violate civil rights, and assault and battery. Sheriff's Office spokeswoman Patricia Johnson said Monday there would be no comment on the lawsuit. So, apparently, of course, this is alleged, but apparently these deputies were, maybe he was having a lot of burping and they thought he was doing it to be obnoxious and got tired of it, and who knows. Certainly unacceptable to beat him over something like that, but I still thought it was a funny story. It's not something you come across that often, someone about being in prison and belching and whatnot. I don't know. We've had some stories. A lot of times we have stories that include intoxication, which can lead to some humorous stories, especially when the intoxicated person is behind the wheel of a vehicle, whether it be a mobility scooter such as a hover-around, a riding lawnmower, bicycle, or some kind of motor vehicle. It's usually a recipe for certainly disaster, but also some humor also. And several months ago, quite some time ago, we had a story about a man who stole. He was drunk, and he stole an ambulance. The ambulance was parked in front of the police station, if I remember correctly, and he got into it, and so he was charged with, drunk driving as well as stealing an ambulance. Well, this story, I'm not sure if alcohol was involved. Oh, excuse me. Nonetheless, it is about stealing an ambulance, but it's got another extra twist. It comes to us from Madison, Wisconsin. Authorities say a drunken man, I guess that word drunken man just eluded me when I read the story the first time. Okay, here we have another drunk man stealing an ambulance. A drunken man stole an ambulance from a Wisconsin ski area, but here's the twist. It still had the patient and the paramedics inside. Oops. The Dane County Sheriff's Department says emergency responders were treating a patient in the back of the ambulance at the Tyrol Basin ski and snowboard area in Mount Horeb on Monday night. They say a 24-year-old Illinois man got into the vehicle and drove it around the parking lot. The Sheriff's Department say deputies arrested the man, but it's unclear how he was stopped. Fitch Rona Medical Service Deputy Chief Dale Dow says the ambulance emergency brake was on and paramedics were still in the back when the man got inside. He says he doesn't know what happened after that. I don't know why someone would try to steal an ambulance. I'm not really sure. Is there a big demand for ambulances on the black market? Or was he so drunk he just didn't know or didn't care? But if you're going to steal an ambulance, maybe you shouldn't steal one that has the actual patient inside. Because what if it were a very serious situation and the patient were to get worse or possibly die because they did not get to the hospital in time? So I, for one, don't think you should steal anything, especially a car. But if you are going to, don't steal an ambulance. That doesn't really make much sense. Let's see here. We have a another listener submitted story here last week Eric had a story. He had an update on the deaf cat. You guys remember the cat that would go up and snuggle next to dead folk, well, not dead, snuggle up to old people in the old folks' home, and they would die sometimes that night, but usually, if not that night, within the next several days, they would pass. And he would stay with the person until they passed away. And there's speculation on why it was happening. Pheromones, intuition, blah, 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 who knows. Anyhow, Eric had an update on that story last week. And here we have a story on a hypnotherapist cat. The regulation of hypnotherapists in the UK is so lax that even a cat can become accredited, the BBC has found. Chris Jackson, presenter of Inside Out in the Northeast and Cumbria, registered pet George with 3 industry bodies. Each one accepted a certificate from the non-existent Society of Certified Advanced Mind Therapists as proof of George's credentials. It follows a similar investigation by an American clinical psychologist, Dr. Steve Eichel. Suspected industry bodies in the U.S. were not running checks on the members. He said, I felt I'd test my hypothesis and did that by getting my cat certified by a number of the most prominent lay hypnosis organizations in the United States. It was a frighteningly simple process. In the UK, George was registered with the British Board of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, the United Fellowship of Hypnotherapists, and the Professional Hypnotherapy Practitioner Association. The UFH welcomed the Inside Out investigation and admitted the mistake, which it said has since been corrected. The PHPA spokesman said the organization makes great effort to ensure every application is a fully qualified hypnotherapist. The BBNLP says it exists only to provide benefits to its members, not to check or certify credentials. If you're not checking and certifying credentials, are you really providing quality benefits to your members? Who knows? And there's a picture of the hypnotherapist cat, and our UK correspondent recommended not staring into his eyes. Pretty good line there. Cute little cat. So apparently, you can make up a certificate from a non-existent Society of Certified Advanced Mind Therapists, send it off to one of these organizations, and get actually accredited as a certified hypnotherapist. That could not work out well. Well, here we go. After we passed the good news story, which we didn't have that much this week, unfortunately, there's not a lot of good news being published in the sources that we use. So here's a very odd story. This comes also from Madison, Wisconsin. A Baraboo man was accused of repeatedly shocking a male dance instructor with a stun gun, claiming the instructor was a sinner who defiles married women. A Dane County prosecutor said the suspect, 59, hastily arranged a dance lesson at the instructor's Madison home and showed up with a stun gun and a sledgehammer last Friday. The criminal complaint says the man told a detective that his church does not condone touching while dancing and that he was going to scare the instructor and tell him to leave women alone. Cuckoo. The Wisconsin State Journal said the instructor told police that the suspect phoned for private dance lessons, and when he opened the door to his home, he began to shock him repeatedly in the neck with a stun gun. I'm not sure I understand the purpose of that. I can totally understand not agreeing with someone's point of view or their politics or their religious convictions or whatever kind of beliefs. And I have no problem if I disagree with someone. I have no problem telling them I disagree with them. And I don't see there's any problem with touching while dancing. How else could you dance with a partner? But if this guy believes that that's wrong, then so be it. He's perfectly free to believe whatever he wants to. But to attack someone with a stun gun, and he shows up with a stun gun and a sledgehammer, what exactly did he have in mind there? I mean, thankfully he didn't use the sledgehammer. Obviously, this man is what I would consider unstable. Let's see here. I'm not going to read this entire story. It's not really that funny, but it is odd. It said, acoustic stress may disrupt insects and even cause them to kill each other. Beetles don't like heavy metal or Rush Limbaugh, suggests new research, but the sound that really drives them mad are manipulated versions of their own noises. Beetles are destroying ponderosa, pinyon, lodgepole pines, and other trees important to the ecosystem. They have their place in the ecosystem too, but they're kind of taking over more than they should. They were basically, some group of scientists came up and said, hey, let's see if we can come up with some nasty offensive sounds that would, along with manipulating the version of the insect's own sounds, and see if it would affect them. And apparently they played these recordings near beetle-infested trees that they brought into a lab setting. The sound disrupted tunneling, mating, and reproduction for the beetles, making it harder for them to eat through the trees. And it goes on with different bangs and clicks and other sounds that they make, and different volumes. Heavy metal, apparently, got on their nerves. It's interesting. The only reason why I really even went to that, it's a weird story, but I find it quite interesting, to be honest with you. Some of the things that are studied in the name of science and quite often paid for by the government of the country where the study is being done. I'm not saying I'm against it. I just find it amusing. I truly understand why you would want to try to find a little bit more balance with these beetles, since they're kind of taking over and destroying things. But I would have never thought of playing loud music and seeing which kind of music they liked and didn't like. Seems a little strange to me, but if they found a way to combat these beetles, then I guess good for them. There's not so much funny stories this week as just strange stories. Here's something that would catch your eyes, catch your ear if you hear it, because it doesn't really seem to make sense with what we consider to be sound science. Scientists freeze water with heat. What? I mean, I can see you boil water with heat, freeze water with cold. Imagine water freezing solid even as it's heating up. Such are the bizarre tricks scientists now find water is capable of. Popular belief contends that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. Surprisingly, if water lies in a smooth bottle and is free of any dust, it can stay liquid down to minus 40 degrees in what's called a supercooled form. The dust and rough surfaces that water is normally found in contact with in nature can serve as the kennels around which ice crystals form. Now, researcher Igor Lyubomirsky at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel and his colleagues have discovered another way to control freezing point of water via what are called quasi-amorphous pyroelectric thin films. Wow. These surfaces change their electrical charge depending on their temperature. When they are positively charged, water becomes easier to freeze, and when they have a negative charge, it becomes harder to freeze. They saw that supercooled water could freeze as it's being heated, as long as the temperature changes the surface charge as well. For instance, when supercooled water is on negatively charged lithium tantalate surface, it will freeze solid immediately when the surface is heated to 17.6 degrees. Curiously, positively charged surfaces inspire supercooled water to freeze from the bottom up, while negatively charged surfaces cause it to freeze from the top down. The ability to better control freezing temperature of supercooled water could be critical for a variety of applications, including the survival of cold-blooded animals, cryopreservation of cells and tissues, protection of crops from freezing, and the ability to understand and trigger cloud formations. I read that last paragraph to explain why they were doing this. It sounds like just another strange scientific study that people are just coming up with reasons to spend money and do research, but that last paragraph basically lists out the purposes of why they're doing it and things that they would help to figure out with that study. But it's pretty amazing that they're able to freeze water even as it's being heated. Well, here we have, I can't remember, no, this comes to us today. This comes to us from London. Maybe our UK correspondent has heard about this. I love the caption. Woman stabs man with stiletto heel. You know it's got to be a good story when that's what it starts off with. British police say they've charged a 33-year-old woman with stabbing a man through the eye with her stiletto heel. That's a pretty gruesome thought if you think about it. Someone putting the heel of a high-heeled dress shoe through someone's eye. West Yorkshire police in northern England say the man was in a critical but stable condition after the woman, with whom he was sharing a cab, assaulted him with the heel of her shoe. The Sun newspaper quoted neighbor as saying the pair were a couple and had gotten into an argument when she kicked him. Police had declined to comment on that report. They said Thursday that the woman had appeared in court earlier in the week and was released on bail. I wish they kind of told us what they were arguing over, much like the guy who was using the stun gun on someone he considered to be a sinner. I wish we kind of knew what this argument was about that made her get so angry that she would, stab the heel of her shoe through this guy's eyeball, which appeared to be someone she was in a relationship with. It sounds like that would hurt, don't you think? I'm a little squeamish of anything touching my eye. I remember seeing a procedure on television, a couple years ago. They were doing some kind of medical procedure, and they took a rather long needle. It was not big in circumference, but still a rather long needle, And they had the person all covered up, and most of their face was covered up, but their eye was exposed. And they put the needle into the eye and kept pressing it deeper and deeper, and it kind of freaked me out. I don't like anything touching my eyeball. I can't wear contacts, but my eye doctor has found that I have hypersensitive cornea, and that's imagining a heel going through an eyeball is a little much for me. Here goes another weird story. Not a lot of these are very funny, but a lot of weird news going on today. Criminal weirdness is something that often gets brought up on the show, and here's something that's an Ohio man accused of tattooing a young child's rear end. Police say no evidence mom okayed the imprint. Comes to us from Louisville, Ohio. Police say an Ohio man tattooed the letter A on the rear end of a 1-year-old girl visiting his home. Lee Dietrich, 20, of Louisville, was arraigned Wednesday on a felony count of child endangering. Authorities say there was no evidence the toddler's mother permitted the tattooing, and it was not clear what the letter A signified. His grandmother called the tattoo a wee little hairline and said there was hardly anything left of it. The police chief said that the tattoo was smaller than a dime. His bond was set at $250,000. If convicted, he could face up to 5 years in prison. I got a picture of this young man. He's 20 years old. I don't know. I know this is going to sound very judgmental. In the picture, he looks like he could be quite disturbed. But I'm not sure that, I definitely agree that what he did was wrong. He shouldn't have done it. But I'm not sure if it should be, hardcore felony and 5 years in jail. It seems maybe a little excessive, but I'm not taking his side. Definitely not a good thing that he's done there. Here's a story. We often have stories in our weird stories about someone being nude or disrobing at odd times. I think last week or the week before we had a story about someone that was disrobing in an airport and different things like that. Well, here, this guy is being jailed for being naked again. So, naked rambler Stephen Goff has been jailed for 21 months for repeatedly walking around nude and even refusing to put clothes on during his court appearances. And a planned mass protest by nudists against the treatment of Goff fell flat when no one bothered to turn up. He was jailed on Monday at Perth Sheriff Court after being found guilty of breaching the peace and being in contempt of court by refusing to put clothes on. Sheriff Lindsay Fowlis, who warned Goff he faced the rest of his life behind bars, gave him a final chance to walk free yesterday by agreeing to put trousers on. But Goff, who had denied his nakedness was a breach of the peace or an affront to the court, refused and was given his longest sentence to date. He was jailed for a year for walking naked in Perth after being freed from prison, and for a further 3 months for contempt for conducting his trial in the nude. Sheriff also added 180 days he had left to serve when he was released midway through his previous 12-month sentence last December. A group of naturalists had started a website campaign to protest about the continued incarceration and vowed to protest at the court when he appeared. However, no one turned up. Goff, who had been attempting to walk around Britain naked, was arrested within seconds of being freed from jail on December 17th. He was found guilty earlier this month of breaching the peace by walking naked in the street and by refusing a request by police to put some clothes on in public. He has spent the bulk of the past 7 years in jail for 20 identical crimes. I don't know. It's an amusing story. I mean, if this guy apparently feels the need to walk around naked, whatever. I guess it seems to be the socially accepted norm to be clothed, or at least have certain parts of your body clothed when you're in public. And even if you don't have an issue with it, I'm not sure you'd want your child seeing this man walking around. Looks like maybe he could, I don't know, play in a movie. Perhaps maybe he could play Jesus or another character from Bible times. Quite skinny, and I would have to say he's either an extremely rebellious man or an extremely slow learner, because according to this story, he has spent most of the past 7 years in jail for the same 20 identical crimes. Can you imagine spending the majority of 7 years of your life in jail for committing the same crime 20 times? Either you're not learning your lesson, or you're not a very good criminal because you keep getting caught. I guess it would be kind of hard not to get caught committing this particular crime. This kind of ties into a story that we had a couple weeks ago about the National No Pants Day, this improv group in New York City. Every year they will organize a bunch of people to get on the subway wearing no pants. Now, they are wearing underwear, underpants, lingerie, boxers, things like that. However, no pants. And it's quite comical to see. If you can go out and Google it, they have a website and you can see all the pictures. They do some neat stuff. They do this one thing that I think is really cool. They have this one day where they get all these identical twins, and they all dress alike and have, similar type pocketbooks or water bottles and, same hair and stuff like that, and they will sit across from each other on the subway so it looks like a human mirror, and it's kind of freaky. So they do some neat things. But this guy is just walking around completely naked. And our UK correspondent, who is over there in Great Britain, says that walking around naked, trying to look like Jesus, he says, I think someone should try to have a word with him. I'm thinking someone having a word with him may not work that well because he's had a word from a judge 20 times and been in prison 20 times for the same thing. And I don't think he's quite getting it. I don't know. If he wants to walk around his house naked or his own property, or maybe even at a nudist colony or something, fine. But walk around naked looking like Jesus, and it's a little bit disturbing, I think. I don't know. Well, I've rambled about as much as I can here. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish off the night with another story from the UK. And then that's going to wrap it up. Maybe the our UK correspondent says maybe the hypnotherapist cat could have a session with this gentleman that's going around naked. Maybe he could get through to him. Grumpy colleagues, slow computers, and office jargon are things that annoy workers most. Thinking outside the box and let's touch base were the most hated buzz phrases. Nearly two-thirds of them said their stress levels have been increased by office irritations, and 1 in 10 had left the job because of them. Here are the top 10 office annoyances. Groupy or moody colleagues, slow computers, small talk and gossip, office jargon or management speak, people speaking loudly on the phone, amen to that, too much health and safety in the workplace, poor toilet etiquette, people not turning up for meetings or on time at all, people not tidying up after themselves in kitchen, and too cold air conditioning. And then the most annoying jargon, here we go. Thinking outside the box, this is in the order of from high to low. Let's touch base. Blue sky thinking, blame storming, drill down to a more granular level. Eyes in the dark, I've got that on my radar. Push the envelope, bring your A game, and get all your ducks in a row. And I will definitely go with them here on the thinking outside the box. It's been so overused that it's lost its original meaning and intent. But I thought that was funny here. This is people surveyed in London, 1,836 people this survey. So I don't know if our UK correspondent gets irritated by any of these. I'm sure he does get irritated by people not showing up on time, and his line of work that could be frustrating for anybody. But if you have a lot of work to do and people don't show up on time, that can certainly be frustrating. Well, that's all we got. That's all we got for you guys tonight. I'm sorry I was a couple minutes late joining, and hopefully Eric will be with me next week, and we'll bring a little bit more pizzazz back to the show. So you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
This has been Blog Talk Radio's The Incoherent Ramblings of C&E. Christopher and Eric are your hosts, and we would like to thank you for listening to our show today. Don't forget to tune in for next week's show, live from Greensboro, North Carolina, as we are every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time.